Right, well, the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal says that it has noted the former President Jacob Zuma's statement in which he endorses his support for the Co-operative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma for the position of ANC President. The former President's statement came a few hours before the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal announced its support for the former Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize for that position ahead of the National Elective Conference in December. Let's get more on this then. We're now joined via Zoom by political analyst Dr. Fikile Vikalazi to weigh in on developments at the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. It's always a pleasure to see you. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Vikalazi.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to viewers at home.
It was a very interesting list. I mean, there's a lot for us to discuss. One wonders where to start. But let me start off by asking you, what you make of this particular list. KZN endorsements are quite interesting at this particular point. Some could have actually sworn that it's over politically for Dr. Zweli Mkhize, but here he is emerging, being endorsed by KZN as a potential party president. What do you make of this list?
It is quite challenging, I think, to see KwaZulu-Natal endorsing Udokotela Zweli Mkhize, especially because of the scandal around digital vibes and the manner in which, the public has received that against his name. It's similar, to the manner in which the public has responded to just the character of former President Jacob Zuma. So it's something similar for me. And the fact that the province can have that confidence to support his nomination as the president is something that's troubling. It's something that we should be worried about as we are moving towards 2024, not just for KwaZulu-Natal, but also for the ANC, given the whole conversation that we've been having as a nation around the question of step aside, but also just around ethical governance in the country. The fact that South Africa is at a time where in 2024 and beyond, really the question of ethical leadership is critical. The question of recovery is critical, which is not necessarily a responsibility of the African National Congress. It's the responsibility of the nation. And I think then that the kinds of nominees or candidates that are brought in within the African National Congress, are the kinds of candidates that we should look at with scrutiny as the public, as citizens of the country, to say we have been through so much as a nation. We are wounded. We are actually bleeding from the levels of corruption and the kind of leadership that we have been subjected to by the African National Congress. And I think really the last thing that the ANC can do at this point is to continue to nominate candidates who have got this kind of allegations that just deepen the wound of the nation, just add salt into the wound of the nation. And for me, I think the endorsement of Dr. Zweli Mkhize by KwaZulu-Natal has just done that. Has just done that to the nation, to say, through all the pain you've gone through by the former Minister of Health around the digital vibe scandal, be it true or false, because it still stands to be fully found guilty. Be that as it may, right? We've got the Zondo Commission that has revealed so many things around many candidates within the African National Congress. So of course we are a nation that is skeptical, and I think the African National Congress would do itself as a good service if it really moves away from candidates that have got that kind of thing, until, of course, they are found guilty by a court of law. I don't think that it is good to keep on putting this slap on the face of the nation by continuing to bring in the same names. And I think the PC would have done better by learning from Umama, who resigned the treasurer position, Uzanele Gumede, who said eventually, as much as I'm aware that I've got this confidence from the people of KwaZulu-Natal, I am going to decline to stand as a treasurer because of the fact that I've got allegations in my name, and I respect the decision of the NEC around questions of step aside. Why is it that Dr. Zweli Mkhize is not doing that? Say, as much as I can see, I've got confidence from the branches of KwaZulu-Natal, appreciate that confidence, but equally, demonstrate willingness to commit to ethical leadership by doing exactly what Mama Uzanele Gumede did. That perhaps may win back the confidence of the nation if we see those kinds of stances being done. But I think if we continue in this manner, it's really deepening just the wound, and it's troubling the nation further.
I think it's interesting, and you raise the issue of the former president, Jacob Zuma, during the time that he sort of gained a lot more popularity, was during a time where it was felt as though he was somehow being targeted. And it does seem that is somewhat or somehow the way of ANC KZN politics, and that they seem to perhaps sympathize with those they view to be, having a target on their backs. Is that something that you've picked up? Is that the reality of what's going on the ground when we're talking about ANC KZN?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that is exactly what I think is happening here in the province. I just want to be sure that I understood your question. Mm-hmm. So you are saying that it seems as if those who've got allegations against their name are being targeted by the ANC. Is that what you are saying?
No. So what I'm trying to say is it does seem as though the ANC and KZN does seem to sympathize with those they believe are being targeted within the ANC. It is quite clear the fact that there are various factions within the ANC, and some might argue with you and say, as you rightly say, Dr. Zweli Mkhize hasn't been found guilty at this stage, that this is just an allegation at this time, and that there is some sort of target on his back by certain factions within the ANC to get him out of the way as his potential to be the leader of the ANC. I think that's, maybe let me structure my question in that way.
Yes, no, I hear you very clearly now. Yes, it does seem like the leadership in the province and branches generally are sympathetic to candidates who seem to be in the list of the alleged, right, in terms of corruption. And the fact that there's this new now development, you'd have heard how Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, for instance, came out strongly against the step-aside resolution, which is not the first time we're hearing that from KwaZulu-Natal. As we're leading towards the provincial conference earlier on, people were against the step-aside resolution. And that should be then troubling. It tells you what kind of leadership that we've got within the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a kind of a leadership, whoever the name is going to be, whoever the candidate is going to be eventually. But it's becoming clearer that that is the language that is spoken here in KwaZulu-Natal, to say whoever stands there must be a candidate that is going to push against the step-aside resolution. And of course, when one does that, it means it's a candidate that is pushing for corruption. It's a candidate that is pushing for lack of character in leadership, lack of ethics in leadership. And it's something that we should worry ourselves about. This sympathizing then of KwaZulu-Natal with that kind of leadership also equally should make us open our eyes in relation to saying what kind of a province are we sitting with? What kind of leadership are we sitting with? That is going to take us to 2024 and perhaps beyond. So, and this is what we've been saying, whoever becomes the leader, the fact that these are people who are within the African National Congress, who are embedded in this narrative around the idea of corruption and step aside, and who are towing the line, who are speaking the same language that says, do away with step aside, do not judge people until they're judged by the courts. Yeah. At the same time, not being able to really speak openly around then what happens to questions of ethics, what happens to candidates within the African National Congress, who really are, some of them are in the list of the alleged, but are sitting comfortably in these positions of power. Some of them are even willing to say, I want to go back. Like we've seen this morning, right, in the statement of the former president, Jacob Zuma, who's saying he will be available for the position of national chairperson should he be elected. What is that? Yeah. What is that, South Africa? So those are the questions we must ask ourselves. What does this mean? Is the ANC really ignoring the conscience of the nation at this point? Are we too soft on the ANC as citizens? And what does this tell us about our agency? Now that we are really moving towards 2024, is this the kind of leadership that we want? Yeah. Do we want to continue in this way? Do we want change? Just
in closing, and very quickly, I know I'm being told to wrap up, but I'd like to get some of your analysis on, why Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma is, again, failing really to make headway here yet again. And I think you and I once had the conversation about how, the ANC, when it comes to female leaders, there's just a certain, ceiling that they cannot go above. And I wonder if you feel that that's got something to do with that. But also, interestingly, getting endorsed by the former president whom you speak of, former President Jacob Zuma, that was also quite interesting, wasn't it?
It was very interesting. I think the challenge that Udokotela Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma faces is beyond the patriarchal character of the African National Congress, which we have clearly spoken about a lot. That is something that is holding her back. I mean, if they failed to put Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela in 1997, many women are not going to probably make it in the ANC. But that's the one thing. I think the other thing is the fact that he belongs to the Zuma clan, right? She's the former wife of the president. She has got children with the president, something that we respect as a nation. And of course, there is that kind of family relationship. And we've seen in Africa what happens to family rulership. It starts itself in these ways. And you just have to look closer to Syria. What happens to governments that become closer to things like family rule? So he supports her as her ex-wife, as the mother of her children. What does that mean to us, right? So there's that. So there are two things that will stand against her. The fact that she carries the Zuma name and the fact that, of course, a patriarchy is embedded within the African National Congress. And South Africans then will be skeptical about that. If she has to stand up and shine, she would have to clearly denounce that kind of positionality, perhaps even that kind of connection. She did it very well when she divorced the former president, perhaps to say that there are certain things I really do not agree with, when it comes to Jacob Zuma, as former President Jacob Zuma. Maybe that is something that can show the citizens and the nation that she's capable of divorcing herself from certain things that the former president stands for if she was able to divorce him. But can she do that politically as well, to divorce herself from some of the political positionalities that the former president aligns herself with, and even from the patriarchal character of the African National Congress? So it's a lot of work that she would need to do. And I'm not surprised then that KZN did not really speak much about her candidacy in this particular instance because of that level of embedded patriarchy within the organization.
All right, always a pleasure, Dr. Fikile Vikalazi. Thanks very much for giving us your time as always. Dr. Fikile Vikalazi is a political analyst weighing in on developments, of course, at the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal.